My name is Akko Maas. I work here at the ITER organization in the Office for Central Integration and Engineering. And during the negotiations, I worked on the European site proposals.
So my name is Tuinder. I'm the legal advisor of the ITER organizations, and during the negotiations I was part of the European Commission delegation who did write all these treaty texts and common understandings. When negotiating ITER and the way we would build the organization, we looked at several international research cooperation models. So we looked at CERN, for example. We looked also at space station. We looked at also some institutes in Europe. ITER is a bit special because it's just one project. For example, in CERN you have several projects, and in other UN kind of organizations as well. It's also rather specific because it's a very big investment which you have to make, and you want to be sure that you can protect your investment. And this was one of the reasons why ITER became an international organization with privileged immunities.
One of the reasons that we ended up with the international organization was the fact that we were looking for an organization that would be stable over the 35-40 years that we would have the organization in place. We needed an organization that was independent of changes in local legislation. There's a number of things that have been taken from other organizations, but there's also a number of things that are unique in the ITER case.
ITER is partly like United Nations, partly like a project. The way this would happen within the organization, how the organization should look like, varied between the parties. For example, some of the members thought it should be purely project oriented, where others typically would say it is more like an institution because it is spending a lot of public money. We came up with a model which was acceptable for all 7 parties involved in this venture. But by definition it means that there have been a lot of fighting about words which actually in practice now have very little meaning.
Next to that, we also had long discussions on the siting of ITER, where at a certain point the 2 processes went kind of in parallel. There were 4 sites proposed for ITER. They were all evaluated, all found as being capable of receiving ITER. And there, at a certain point, the negotiations came to a deadlock also on the institution side, because there's a number of things that you can only start going into the details once you know where this machine is going to be built.
So if you ask us again, what did we do during 5 years? We were working actually at a model of cooperation to see how this would come together. We were trying to figure out how to share knowledge, the intellectual property rights, which took us a very long time to agree on. And we also at the same time at home had to keep political support for this whole venture.
Yes, as you know, the added complication in Europe is that Europe is not just one country, it's at the moment 27, it was 25 plus 1 at that moment. That means you need to get political support from at least a large part of these people, which means, as Harry said, a lot of work inside Europe as well.
There are many things which have been overlooked, but I'm not sure whether these things could have been included in the negotiations. These are technical details, these are cost aspects, for example, which basically you can only know when you start really constructing the organization and then the machine itself. So yes, clearly the negotiators were not able to put everything in advance on paper, and this was also not the idea. If we would have tried to deal with all the details, I guess we would have spent 10 years. So the way this treaty has been written is so general that it in principle should survive the time. It's general enough that it can adapt itself with interpretations and other things. But this is also what is criticized by some people, where they say, well, it's not specific enough, we don't know what to do with this. So it's being done on purpose like that. It should survive 35 years at least.
Yes. And as Harry says, we had the basic treaty, which is the bit of paper that has been signed by the 7 governments or the 7 members of ITER, next to that we have a lot of what are called common understandings, interpretations of a number of aspects that are too detailed to go into the treaty text, because it would also be too restricting in having them in the treaty text. But I certainly think that it can serve other ventures, especially ventures that deal with a similar kind of problematics as we had to deal with. As some of the members indicated at the end of negotiations, for them this now is a model on future negotiations of such international organizations.